In the 1970s and 80s, Italy was plagued by a series of murders being claimed by someone named Ludwig. A brutal murder would take place, and then the media would be sent a pamphlet outlining Ludwig's ideology and his reason for the crime. For 7 years, investigators tried to find out who was behind the Ludwig murders without success. All it took was one minor mistake to finally put the responsible party behind bars. This is Monsters. Wolfgang Abel and Marco Furlan, the notorious duo behind the Ludwig murders, came from surprisingly ordinary backgrounds. Wolfgang, born on January 3, 1959 in Dusseldorf, West Germany, was the son of a German insurance company director. Marco, born on April 1, 1960 in Padua, Italy, was the son of the head of the burn center at the Verona Police Department. The two young men met during their high school years in Verona after the Abels moved south from Germany. Despite their different nationalities, they found common ground in their shared interests and ideologies. They both lived in upper-class areas of the city, and they believed that the world needed to be cleaned up. Their friendship deepened over time, and they remained close even after graduation. Marco began attending the University of Padua and was about to get a degree in physics. Wolfgang had gotten high marks in math in high school, and he began working for the same insurance company as his father after he graduated. Wolfgang and Marco's criminal activities were deeply rooted in their admiration for neo-Nazi philosophy. They harbored xenophobic and homophobic views which shaped their twisted vision of the world. The duo believed in the need to clean up society by eliminating those they deemed undesirable. Their targets included homeless individuals, sex workers, homosexuals, drug addicts, priests with questionable pasts, and establishments like nightclubs and adult cinemas. Their extremist ideology manifested in the form of a vigilante group they called Ludwig. That name first appeared in 1980 on a leaflet sent to a Venice newspaper bearing a Nazi swastika. The leaflets would end up being left at crime scenes, often containing slogans such as, "We are the last of the Nazis," if only, or "Death comes to those who betray the true God." Those messages revealed their misguided sense of purpose and self-righteousness. Wolfgang and Marco's first act of violence occurred on August 25, 1977 in Verona. Rino Spinelli was a transient who regularly slept in his car, a Fiat 126. Wolfgang and Marco believed that he was a Roma, who were considered by some to be gypsies, though many people consider that a racial slur. Because of his transient lifestyle and the assumption that he was a drug addict, the pair decided that he deserved to die, so they burned him alive by throwing 4 Molotov cocktails into his car while he slept. He was later found by police locked inside his car. That horrific act marked the beginning of their reign of terror, which would last for 7 years and result in 15 deaths and more than 24 injuries. This first attack was particularly symbolic, knowing what Marco's father did for a living. The duo's crimes were characterized by their brutality and the seemingly random nature of their victim selection. They employed various methods of murder, including burning, stabbing, and bludgeoning. Many crime scenes were marked by their signature leaflet explaining their twisted rationale for choosing the victim. The reign of terror orchestrated by Wolfgang and Marco, operated under the name Ludwig, left a trail of devastation across Italy and into Germany. It was more than a year after they killed Rino Spinelli that the duo would strike again. On December 17, 1978, the men targeted a 44-year-old man named Luciano Stefanato, a gay sommelier in Padua. A security guard in the area said he heard 2 men's voices, and when he approached them, they fled. That's when he found Luciano, stabbed 30 times, with 2 blades left in his back. The following year, on December 12, 1979, Wolfgang and Marco targeted 22-year-old Claudio Costa, a drug addict and dealer in Venice. Police received an anonymous call about the attack, but by the time they arrived, Claudio had succumbed to the 20 stab wounds he had received. On November 25, 1980, the duo sent a letter to the media claiming responsibility for the murders. It would be the first of many correspondence sent to the media throughout the years they were active. A month later, on December 20, 1980, they killed Alice Maria Beretta, a 52-year-old sex worker in Vicenza. They murdered her with an axe and a hammer and then mutilated her remains. Now, it's one thing to believe someone is deserving of death. The death penalty has been used in many countries, and whether you agree with it or not, on a basic level, the convicted did something so heinous that they were deemed worthy of execution, and that was that. For Wolfgang and Marco to go on to mutilate their victims after they had died shows some level of enjoyment of the process. It wasn't enough to punish these people with death, they needed to humiliate them in the process. It's a level of cruelty that is the reason people like them shouldn't be deciding on anyone's punishment. 2 days after Alice was murdered, the media received the first copy of the Ludwig pamphlet where the men claimed responsibility for the woman's death and even described the hammer that had been used in the attack. The pamphlet was signed Gott mit uns, which translates to God with us, a Nazi swastika, and the name Ludwig. On May 24, 1981, Wolfgang and Marco set fire to the Tower of Porta San Giorgio. The building, by then abandoned, had been the gateway into the city of Verona in medieval times. By 1981, it had become home to vagrants and drug addicts, so they tried to burn it down in response. 17-year-old Luca Martinotti had been spending the night there with a friend, and Luca died in the fire, while his friend suffered serious injuries. A few days after that, they sent another pamphlet to the La Repubblica, which read, quote, Ludwig, our faith is Nazism, our justice is death, our democracy is extermination. Let it be known that we have promptly claimed responsibility for the fire at St. Giorgio in Verona with a message. Sent to La Repubblica, we attach a metal disc, identical to one applied on the largest of the 3 used torches. Gott mit uns. Somehow, the pamphlet got linked back to Wolfgang and Marco, and they were tried in connection, but they were ultimately acquitted. Very little information is available about that trial. One of their most shocking attacks occurred on July 20th, 1982, when they targeted 2 elderly friars. 71-year-old Father Mario Lovato and 69-year-old Father Giovanni Battista Pagato. They were both friars at the sanctuary of the Madonna di Monte Berico in Vicenza. Both men were brutally attacked with hammer blows to their heads. Father Pagato died immediately, while Father Lovato was rushed to the hospital where he also died. It's believed that they were killed because they were from the cult of Madonna and therefore, by Ludwig standards, believed in a false god. Separated by another year, the duo attacked 71-year-old Father Armando Bison in Trento on February 26, 1983. Father Bison had been accused of sexual assault in the past, and the killers believed that he was a pedophile. They used an awl to pound a nail into the priest's forehead. When he was discovered, he was still alive and the awl was on the scene with a crucifix attached to it. Father Bison survived the attack for 10 days but ended up dying on March 8th. Another pamphlet was sent to the media, and this one read, quote, Whoever betrays the true God has been punished. There was a break in the case when a professor in Pavia named Silvano Romano was arrested on March 29th that same year. Police suspected that he was the mastermind behind the Ludwig murders, but they eventually realized he had no link to the crimes and he was released on April 6th. As their reign of terror progressed, Wolfgang and Marco expanded their targets to include establishments they deemed immoral. On May 14, 1983, they set fire to the Eros Cinema in Milan. The business was a porn theater, and the duo believed that the people inside were immoral and worthy of death. The fire was set while there were patrons inside. 6 people ended up dying and 40 more were injured. The fatalities included 5 moviegoers, Pascal Esposito, Ernesto Mori, Domenico La Sala, Giorgio Franza and Elio Molteni, and one passerby, Livio Carasoli, who had tried to help people during the fire. Witnesses reported seeing 3 men flee the area. There's been speculation in the years since the crimes that at least one more person was involved with the Ludwig murders. It's believed that someone else might have helped Wolfgang and Marco commit some, but not all of the murders. That person's existence has never been verified. On January 8, 1984, Wolfgang and Marco were in Munich, Germany when they caused the only known death outside of Italy. At a nightclub called the Liverpool, the pair poured gasoline on the building and lit it on fire. 21-year-old Corina Tartarati was either a bartender or a waitress at the club, and she was badly injured along with 7 other people. Corina unfortunately would never recover from her wounds and died on April 27th. After that, another pamphlet was sent to the media which read, quote, "At the Liverpool, they don't fuck anymore." The reign of terror orchestrated by Wolfgang and Marco came to an abrupt end on March 4, 1984. The duo's final attempt to cause destruction occurred at the Melamara Disco in Castione della Stiviere. Approximately 400 young people were present at the venue dressed in costumes, celebrating a carnival party. Wolfgang and Marco, disguised as carnival goers, entered the disco with the intent to set it ablaze. One of them, dressed as a Pierrot clown, opened an emergency exit to allow his partner entry with canisters of gasoline. The two poured the gasoline on the carpet and furniture and ignited it, but they were unaware that both of those things were actually fire-resistant. After the Cinema Statuto fire in Turin in 1983, which caused the deaths of 64 people, the Melamara Disco had replaced its carpet and furniture with flame-resistant products. That ended up slowing the fire enough that staff were able to extinguish the flames. Upon discovery, the 2 assailants attempted to flee but were apprehended by the crowd and subsequently arrested by the police. The trial of Wolfgang Abel and Marco Furlan began on December 1, 1986 in Vicenza, Italy. The prosecution charged them with up to 15 murders, presenting evidence of their involvement in a series of brutal killings spanning from 1977 to 1984. Throughout the proceedings, Marco vehemently denied the accusations, claiming the evidence against him was fabricated. Authorities believed Wolfgang to be the mastermind behind the Ludwig murders. Coincidentally, though, once Wolfgang and Marco were caught, the Ludwig pamphlets completely stopped. The trial lasted for over 2 months, during which time psychiatric experts testified regarding the mental state of both defendants. 6 psychiatrists presented evidence on behalf of the defense, arguing that Wolfgang and Marco were insane at the time of the murders. However, the prosecution maintained that the duo was responsible for their actions. On February 10, 1987, the court reached its verdict. Wolfgang Abel and Marco Furlan were each sentenced to 30 years in prison, a decision that sparked controversy and debate. The prosecutor had initially sought life sentences for both men. The court's decision to impose a lesser sentence was influenced by trial experts who declared both defendants mentally unstable. The sentencing included an additional provision requiring Wolfgang and Marco to undergo 3 years of psychiatric therapy following the completion of their prison terms. That aspect of the sentence reflected the court's recognition of the defendants' mental health issues and the need for rehabilitation, though I'm not sure if waiting up to 30 years to receive that treatment was really going to help. Over the years, Wolfgang and Marco were rumored to have committed a few other murders. Some claimed that he had stabbed an unnamed casino employee in the early 1980s, but the victim was never mentioned in any of the pamphlets the deadly duo sent to the media. It's possible they were responsible, but there's no evidence linking them to the crime. It was also rumored that Wolfgang and Marco set fire to a strip club called Casa Rosso in Amsterdam. 13 people died in the fire, and a former employee was eventually arrested and convicted of the crime. On April 18, 2008, the Milan Surveillance Court made the decision to assign Marco Furlan to social services, taking into account his good conduct and imminent release scheduled for early 2009. That decision sparked protest from various media outlets and the public. Marco was eventually released on probation for good behavior on November 12, 2010, after serving 32 years in prison. Wolfgang Abel's case followed a similar trajectory. In 2009, his residential detention measure was changed to house arrest, which he served in his family home in Valpolicella. After the expiration of his sentence and an additional period of probation, Wolfgang was granted full freedom on November 24, 2016. Both Wolfgang and Marco claim they are no longer in contact with each other, although some skeptics doubt that assertion. The release of these notorious killers has raised concerns about public safety and the effectiveness of the justice system in rehabilitating violent offenders. The legacy of the Ludwig murders extends beyond the immediate victims and their families. The case has become a part of Italy's collective memory, serving as a reminder of the dark chapter in the country's history. It has also influenced discussions about mental health, extremism, and the potential for seemingly ordinary individuals to commit extraordinary acts of violence. The motivations behind the Ludwig murders continue to be a subject of debate and analysis. The neo-Nazi ideology espoused by Wolfgang Abel and Marco Furlan has been scrutinized as a driving force behind their actions. Their twisted vision of cleaning up society by targeting those they deemed undesirable has raised questions about the dangers of extremist ideologies and their potential to inspire violence. The exact motivations of these two monsters may never truly be known, but what we do know is that they believed they had the ability to determine who deserved to live and die, and anyone who believes that should never exist with the rest of society. If you're a fan of true crime, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can also hit like or leave us a comment. You can check out our other show, Somewhere Sinister, on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to support the show, check out our merchandise at thisismonsters.com. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.